Hey artists, in this video we're going to talk about the final part of our Dine art supply project. We're going to be adding watercolor paint to our project. I'm starting off by using the red paint to fill inside of my watercolor palette the pod that would be the red paint. After I have the red paint all used for that, I'm going to tap the brush on my finger so that I can splatter any extra red paint off my brush and onto my paper. Then I'm going to get a little bit more red paint because I want more red, and I'm going to stick out my finger and tap, tap, tap the paintbrush on my finger. I need to be so careful that I don't get my paint on someone else's project while they're working. We can set up cardboard or you can move closer to a wall to protect your neighbor's work. I'm going to use the orange watercolor paint next. I'm going to wiggle the brush to make sure that the paint is super juicy, and I'm going to fill in my orange watercolor pod, and then I'm going to get a little extra water and I'm going to tap, tap, tap the brush on my finger so that the orange watercolor paint will go onto my project and make nice little splats, making sure I don't get it on anyone else's project. The next color that I'm going to use is the yellow. So I'm going to use the brush and water to rub, rub, rub and wake up the yellow paint. And once I have the yellow paint, I'm going to paint inside of my watercolor palette, the yellow pod, and then I'm going to get a little extra yellow watercolor paint and tap, tap, tap all over my paper to get all the extra yellow off the brush. If I want a little extra yellow, I can add some more yellow by reloading the paintbrush with yellow paint. After the yellow paint, I'm going to use this yellow-green color paint. Some of the paints are different values. There's a darker green and a lighter green, so I'm going to use the yellow-green to make a yellow-green paint, fill in the pod, and then I'm going to add little yellow-green splatters by tap, tap, tap the paintbrush on my finger to make the little splats, being careful not to get it on anyone else's project. So the next color that I'm going to make, I'm going to mix a color. I'm going to mix that green and I'm going to mix it in with the blue on that paper. So I'm going to have my yellow green and I'm going to have my blue, and I'm going to make a new color for my little paint palette. And then I'm going to splat that extra color onto my drawing by tapping it on my finger. Notice that I'm not flinging the paintbrush like overhead. I'm just doing a little tap tap on my finger. The next color, I'm going to use that blue for the next pod. And then I'm going to use the extra blue to tap, tap, tap all over my picture and add blue splatter to my picture. Once I'm done with the blue splatter, I'm going to use the violet watercolor paint. I'm going to mix the violet watercolor paint and rub it and put it on the pod of my watercolor paint palette. And then I'm going to pick up any extra purple paint and I'm going to tap, tap, tap the finger and the brush to make little purple splatters. I still have one more space on my watercolor palette to mix. So I'm going to mix a blue violet. So I mix the blue and the violet and I put them in that little pod there. And any extra blue violet paint that I make, I'm going to tap, tap, tap my finger with the brush and I'm going to make a little blue violet splatter for my artwork. As you're looking at your piece, you may want to go back and add more splatters or more of a certain color. You can definitely do that. Make sure that you're using the paintbrush carefully while you're adding the splatter. So make sure that the brush and the pod are very wet. That's going to help make it easier for the paint to drip off of the brush. And when you tap your finger, do it delicately, not too rough.